The November 10th, 2020 meeting of the Carlynton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Dr. Simsick, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, I would. I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which
which
it
stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Apple. Yeah, I'm not. Okay. Director Apple.
Here.
Director Frank.
Here.
Director Hunter. Director Mendoza. Director O'Brien.
Here.
Director Simsick.
Here.
Director Zaletsky.
Here.
Director Schreiber.
Here. So at the beginning of our meetings, we always allow for the public to ask any questions that they have about items that are on our agenda. With the exception of the new board member appointment, which we'll make in a moment, and you can comment on that at that time. Does anyone in the public have questions about items on our agenda? Mr. Jones, anybody raising their hand?
I have no hands raised at this time, but I'll say it loud for the people there. If you're at home and you'd like to comment to the board, just raise your hand using the hand raise function in Zoom, and we'll call you. I have one raised hand. It's going to be Aaron Manifold. You are permitted to speak. You'll just have to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Erin Manifold. I'm at 415.5 Center Avenue. And I just had a question. Am I allowed to ask a question or just make a comment? I just wanted to. Okay, I just wanted to know if we were getting notified about COVID cases at the high school. If we are at the elementary, are we getting district-wide notification or is it specific to the school?
Generally, at this time, as far as COVID notifications, we have been sending out district-wide notifications for staff members who test positive. For individual students, we have not been sending out district-wide notifications. However, we have been in contact with individual parents and also with any parents whose child would have been exposed to another child here in the schoolhouse. At this time, we have not had any children exposed through school district spread. All of our cases have occurred outside of the schoolhouse, and we've been working very closely with members of our public and our families to work our way through how they need to go through it in quarantine and getting them linked up with specific resources.
Okay, so if a child in the high school tests positive, we're making sure that they don't have siblings in the elementary school since we're not getting notifications for those?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. So if a child tests positive in the high school, if they have siblings that they're around, at their home, are they getting, so we're not getting notified at the elementary school if the high school child has a sibling?
You will definitely get a notification in regard if there is an exposure of an individual student at the high school and that child would have exposed other students, you would definitely get a notification if your child was one of those students. At this time, we have not had any students in the schoolhouse who have been present for any instructional time that have tested positive. So we haven't had that case come up yet, but we have been communicating out if there are staff members in the district, if they test positive, we've been sending out notifications of that. Those have gone out district-wide. There's just been one of those notifications that was about 10 days ago. And we haven't had any students who have been in the schoolhouse yet who have tested positive. In the event we do get a positive test, we will notify the district. And we are also considering at this time putting up information online to make that transparent as well. So that's something we're considering as well, so that parents can recognize how many students we have that have tested positive, how many staff members that have tested positive, and how many cases are active and how many cases are not.
Okay, and are you, I mean, do you guys have a numerical threshold that you're looking at for, returning to remote instruction with the, percentage in the county? And maybe this was going to be addressed later, and I apologize.
Number as far as number of cases that we would have in any of our buildings. In working with the Allegheny County Department of Health, each of those, the department's working with each school district on an individual basis. One of the things that we've been doing at a local level is every day logging on to the county website and tracking the number of positive cases out of Carlynton, Carnegie, and Rosslyn Farms. And then also documenting the number of individuals who have been tested. And using that data, then we're able to go through and calculate individual positivity rates and then also incident rates in our community, and are able to compare them with the schoolhouse as far as the number of kids in our school. In some of the cases that I've been in correspondence with other school districts and other superintendents, you may have a spike where you have 4 or 5 cases, say at the high school level or at the district level over one weekend. And it could be very possible that those 4 cases come out of the same household. It could be very possible that those 4 cases come out of one household and another close friend. So those are things as far as an individual basis that we need to go through and monitor on a day-to-day basis. And it's 7 days a week as far as monitoring things and keeping in touch with everybody that we'll continue to do. So we're very confident with the model that we have in place, all the safety precautions that we're taking, and to mitigate the spread in the schoolhouse for sure. But we will definitely remain committed to being transparent with everything in regard to our safety procedures. And then also, if there are any public safety issues that we need to share with our families, we will definitely do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, any other questions? No, I don't. Okay. We can move on. Now it's the time to have a new director up for appointment. Does any board member, either present or on the call, want to make a motion about a potential new director, Ms. Susan Kuchar? So moved.
Second.
And that is to move and appoint Ms. Susan Kuchar to the position of school director, filling the vacancy created by the resignation of David Russos. Just to clarify the motion. Correct? That's right. Move to second. Any discussion? If not, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you very much. We'll come up and have our solicitor swear you in.
Ask you to raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations. Good job. Yes, the board members.
Hey. All right. Oh, yeah, I can repeat it. Oh, right.
I think you have a choice of seats on each side.
And I think one of the best things.
Mr. President, this part is free, is absolutely qualified, cast votes. From here on in, for everybody's purpose or term, he will serve until the first Monday of December 2021. This is the next municipal elections for Mr. Russo's resignation. So I have a next one. Normally we just get hands off, if you elbow one, thank you so much. Before we look into it, your elbow one. Thank you. Hey, Jim. Yes. So we've got board members texting that they're having trouble hearing you. Yeah, so maybe pull your mic close to you. Understood. I'll try it again. Are you ready? Yeah, you're still pretty loud. So it's a cable issue. All right. If you have that problem again, just flag me in the more. I'll yell out. Okay. So congratulations, Ms. Kuthar. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. Moving on in our agenda, I'll report that we had an executive session prior to this meeting where we discussed personnel, real estate, and negotiation matters. I'll now turn to Dr. Crater for the superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Building off of the question that was brought in from one of our callers today here. First, this is our first go at a hybrid board meeting. So we thank everybody for their patience as we work through the process of getting the microphones to work and getting the links between home and school. We look to hold our meetings in a hybrid setting from this time moving forward as we possibly can. And that we recognize goes along with what we recognize inside the school, that there's nothing that can replace that face-to-face learning in our classrooms. So since our last meeting when we met, as far as our plan for re-entry in phase 2, we have had students report back to our schoolhouse. K through 3 has reported back 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then starting last Thursday, we had our students in grades 4 through 12 report on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have a host of safety precautions that are put in place to help mitigate the spread of the virus in our schools. Since this past summer, we've conducted a lot of training with staff to recognize signs and symptoms. Our school nurses have undergone training for contact tracing so that they can help assist to help notify individuals in the event that they need to be notified. We've also, in our cafeterias, we've purchased plexiglass, and those plexiglass protection barriers allow students to sit with one another during lunch, which lunch times can be some of the most concerning times of the school day due to when you eat, you have to remove your mask. So working with the Allegheny County Health Department, what they've shared with us is that we have the plexiglass in place that will help definitely mitigate the spread and will also help decrease the number of students that would need to quarantine in the event we would have a positive case in the school. So as we look at providing face-to-face instruction, several weeks ago in September, October, when we made the decision to move forward, case counts in the county were much lower than what they are at the present time. Certainly, we keep track of the cases. We're in constant contact with Allegheny County to help us learn the spread of the virus at the local level and also at the county level to help us make decisions as we move forward. Our goal, at least my goal originally, was to increase the number of days as quickly as we could. At this time, we don't see that in the near future. However, we look for additional data that will help indicate whether or not we can open up our schools to 4 or 5 days a week for all of our students. Certainly, that's our goal. We've recognized that face-to-face instruction has increased engagement from our students. The The remote learning, as we all recognize coming out at the very beginning of the school year, was not the most ideal situation. And it does create issues and in some cases barriers to learning, but we've put many strategies in place where our teachers are able to reach out and work closely with our students. We're coming to the end of the first quarter, and as we look at performance scores for our students, we have noticed that there have been students who have not performed at the rate that they are normally accustomed to achieving. That's not something that is overly surprising, just based on the access that students have had to the face-to-face instruction, but it is something that we are extremely concerned with, and we're going to review our student performance data, take a look at additional plans that we can put in place to help our students recognize success and achieve in our classrooms, and considering different components as we move throughout the course of the school year, and then potentially even into the summer months with different levels of remediation, and then potentially other types of strategies that we can help keep students motivated to continue to learn. Learning and safety. Those are the two big components that we're here with the school that we want to make sure that we're adhering to. So we will be monitoring both of those things very carefully. So as we move forward, we will continue to monitor cases. We'll continue to work with our kids in the classroom. It's great to see them back in the classroom. The first couple of days was great to see all the smiling faces of the kids. K through 3 started off on a rainy day, but their smile certainly brought a lot of uplifting spirit to many of us in the school. It was great to see the kids. Same thing when our 4 through 12 kids came back, and working with a lot of our teachers and touching base with them. They were very thankful to have the kids back in the school and in classes. So our long-term goal, short-term goal is to increase the number of days that we can get students in class. But certainly, we're always going to be very mindful of the safety issues that presents to us and making those decisions as we move forward as best we can. At next week's board meeting, I'll have more of a PowerPoint presentation for an update on the strategies that we're putting in place in regard to COVID, and then also some additional strategies and some information and a more comprehensive report. So I have. Thank you, Mr. Schreiber.
For the finance portion of Chris.
Yes, thank you.
Josh, would it work better if I shared my mic on here?
No, just be loud.
The math. Okay, so what I want to do for this finance report this time around, wrap up the October June 30th 2020 fiscal year. Our audited numbers have come through. We have not gotten our official final audited report, but this is where all numbers should be. Give an update on the 2021 school year, and then segue into at that point some of the capital projects we have outstanding. So what I'll do is I'll get into 2021, where we're at as of October 31st, 2020. This year we budgeted an increase of $871,000 in expenses from the 1920 year. So our budget expenses were up to $30.457 million. At this point through the school year, we are $197,593 expenses above last year's pace. I think that's good pace at the moment. The total expenditures at this point are $6.7 million. Last year we were at $6.5 million at this point. So we did an increase in our budgeted expenditures of 2.94%. Right now we're 3% above that level, but we did pay certain bills over there earlier to increase those expenditures, as our debt payments of $277,000 have already been paid this year. Last year at this point, we paid none of our debt payments. So that gives you about that gives you $197,000 difference, which puts us over right there. So I think we're going where we expected, even with all the additional expenditures of COVID, additional purchases, desks spread out, students. Dr. Kreider discussed the plexiglass district, but all these are large expenditures that, aspects of our budget with the COVID pandemic. And please remember, this goes back to July 1 expenditures right now. So Go into a revenue update at this point through October 31. We budgeted an increase of revenue of $1.069 million. Portions of that were due to some of the additional COVID funding we received. We expect an extra $215,000 from the PCCP safety grant. Part of that was moved into last year because of expenditures we had, so we see a little bit less on that. Also, we received for the CARES Act over $470,000, which that money will all be focused into this year, so none of that was pulled back. It was spent, well, those expenses delayed in this current school year. So with that $1.069 million, we had budgeted increase. That was a 3.7% increase from the 1920 budget. Right now, the majority of our revenue comes in from the real estate tax. This is the heavy payment period. We are at $7.139 million in real estate, or not real estate tax, but overall revenue at this point. Last year at this time, we were at $16.425 billion. And that does, we have not received any of those funds from the CARES Act, and that's $470,000. That has us up at this point a year of $713,000, which is a 4.35% increase in actual revenue received. So we're a little bit above, not as much as we're above. If I go into our expenses, we had an increase of budget 2.94 overall for the entire year. At this point, we're 3.03%, so 0.09% above expenses what we have budgeted for the whole year. Where we're at right now, as I said, that debt payment's in there. You can see we have a much greater increase with the revenue versus budget. Before we were at 3.7, which we expect here right now, we're 4.35% of where we were at last year in actual. So we're about, we are 0.65% better this year currently. So if I go into last year to give you the wrap up through October 31st, as we leave our books open and incur some expenditures, bills coming late and such, the final numbers for 1920, we budgeted a $29.586 million in expenses for the 1920 school year. We came in at $27.9 million in expenses. So you can see over $1.6 million under expenditures. Some of those large savings were we reconfigured our busing, and then that contractor was leaving at that point. We did not pay the additional money for the time we were off March 13th on just general management, but that was the big bucket where we saw the change in those other purchase services of $956,000. And just managing that budget through the year. I wouldn't expect it that extreme, but I would have expected us to come under without the busing. We may have been around $28.7 million. So I do think we would have still the expenses managed well below what the budget was even without COVID. On the other end of it, our revenues, we budgeted $28.874 million in budget revenue. We came in at $29.5 million in budget revenue. So that gave us an increase of over $600,000 in revenue from where we budgeted. So percentage-wise, very close in at $600,000 on that $28 million, almost a $29 million budget. Very minimal. I'll do the numbers real quick. You're looking at around 2% right there. So very, very good on the revenue budget. We had a much greater divide percentage-wise on the expenses, but very odd, unexpected year.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt behind you. Is the increase in revenue, is any of that from CARES money, or is that all just typical?
From last year?
Correct.
There was a little bit. So I believe we pushed about $150,000 back. So that takes our difference between budget, we were about 635 off. So 150 of that would take us down to about 485. Real estate tax collection and other local tax, such as the EIT and such, that came up about $565,000 higher than we had budgeted. You always have to be careful with your collection rates with the adjustment. try to be conservative and see what our collection rates are, because never know when a pandemic. So overall, that gave us, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $1.6 million this year. What we did with that 1.6, that will not necessarily show in our audit, because we put $1.4 million into our capital projects fund, and we put $200,000 into technology infrastructure, refreshes, equipment that we have assigned to those expenditures to have go forward, especially with how we went so remote and just general upgrades the district was going to need. So we took that surplus and assigned it to those areas of need. And what we're going to get into this too is, I think this segues well into our capital projects at the moment, is we did a project with Mr. McDade, our facilities director, Director Russo's, and Director Frank. We had a team together, and we went through the capital projects, and our risk analysis aspect brought up, I forget the actual name of the risk analysis, but that was a tool used by Director Frank. So we were looking at projects, and we felt we were up over $6 million, maybe $6.4, $6.5 million in projects. So what we were able to do with the room we felt we were going to have in the budget at the end of the year, we tried to clean up some of these projects that were outstanding. We had $25,000 in carpet in one building. I'm just trying to give you some of the expenses so you get an idea. One building, the carpet replacement would cost us $25,000. Up at our high school, we discussed making some of the upgrades to the front area. That carpet is $20,000. Craft and gym age unit replacement, $25,000. Any replacement we have, we're getting into 15, 20, and that's smaller projects for the district. So high priority projects we had on our plate right now with our chiller system, when we replaced the HVAC system through the ESCO project, that's the energy saver. We had to leave certain aspects of the project out at that time based on we wanted the energy savings to match up one-to-one with the actual project, which we were able to do. But we got to the point that we're 2 years down the road, and now the chillers, if they go, they're going to go. So with this surplus of $1.4 million, this was part of the strategy with it. We were able to replace the chillers, the univents. That was total project of $736,000, and then there was an additional aspect of the project. What was that aspect? The nozzles or cooling tower? The cooling tower. So that got us up to about $745,000. Train in our last project, they gave us 5% if we paid a certain percentage up front, which we paid about 90% up front, which gave the district $45,000 in savings last time. So that was more money we were able to put in other projects. So this time it's up to 6%. So every month this project is not completed, we have 6% back on this project. I believe that could take us down from the 745 to the 720 to 725. So we are going to pay with our fund balance, which we use our capital projects fund, that $745,000 or the 720, whatever that ends up being, after the discount from trade. We're not getting 6% anywhere on an interest rate that we're going to invest on. So we're going to clean that up. That will leave us with probably around $675,000, $680,000 left in that capital projects from the $1.4 million. So we have some opportunities to fix other projects that we were unable to do at the time due to the fund balance. One aspect we have a recoating of the roof that we need done within this year. We have the ability with that project, it could cost us anywhere from $850,000 to $1.8 million. So it's just a determination how big of a project. Are we replacing certain parts of our roof? Are we coating certain parts of the roof? But those are determinations we'll make with that money, whether we pay, depending on how big the scope of that project is, whether we pay cash versus a bond. If we would go to a bond, that would allow that money too to clean up some of these smaller projects. But in addition, also with the COVID, we totaled $86,000 of the smaller projects. We were really to the credit of our board, they made an agreement with the community of Crafton where Alcazam was doing a project, and through the help of Crafton also, but really credit to our board, a parking lot project that has been delayed year after year because of our fund balance. Alcazam was able to wrap up this project, I think, through a drainage project to prevent flooding in Crafton, finish the parking lot across from the Crafton school, which they were never able to have a Crafton parking lot across from the school. So I think that was a $400,000 project that would be no cost to the district. So as I said, that knocked out $486,000 worth of projects. So projects I have that could be done this year that are what we consider high priority, we would have $2.752 million remaining on that. And then future projects, it contains quite a bit with auditorium lighting, the VCP replacement, the horn replacement, upgrades to the stadium, parking lots, auditorium seating in Carlynton. We would still at that's $2.867 million in projects. So we looked at the total capital projects unfinished with what we finished, what's in process, is $5.619 million. With that capital projects fund, we can pay $1.4 million for those projects, depending on how we would approach the funding for the roof. We look at it as we can get these projects that are due in the near future and down to over probably the next 3 to 4 years. We look at about $4.2 million. So that's why that is so critical for us to move money into these capital projects funds and plan for the future. So that's my finance report for this evening. So unless anybody has any questions or any comments.
Chris, I do.
Go ahead, Chief.
I do. Sorry. So I had a hard time following some of that just because of the volume. So two things. One, it sounds like you're saying that if we compare kind of what we forecasted previously in terms of revenue and expenses versus what's materialized with coronavirus, revenue is a little bit slower in terms of percentage year-over-year collection. But total dollar-wise, it's somewhat comparable, and the gap between the two, and then so in some of our expenses are lower too, but we do have other expenses we didn't anticipate. The gap between those, the CARE Act helped us make up, and so it didn't really. I mean, it had an impact on our overall budget, but the CARE Act did help us with it. And tied to that is my second question. So last year when we looked at clarifying kind of the basis of what we needed in our fund balance, so we had 3 categories. We had known CapEx that over the next 5 years, we're gonna have to do those projects, and those are moving forward. Then we had kind of at-risk CapEx that maybe could be delayed, maybe they wouldn't occur, but we needed to be ready to deal with them. And then we also had operational risk, kind of the balance between our expected revenue versus our expected expenses. And when we look at that at-risk CapEx, the 2 key issues that were the drivers on kind of budget concern were the chillers and the high school roof, both of which we're making progress in dealing with right now. So it sounds like that imbalance, like that imbalance between what we projected in terms of revenue versus expenses and impacts from coronavirus when we factored into how we're dealing with our overall budget. We're not out of the woods in terms of a long-term, like 5-year look at our forecast and financial security, but we have made a lot of good progress this year.
I agree, Chief. Chris, you agree?
I would agree with that. I agree with the aspect, we're not out of the woods because we still had a $600,000 deficit. We don't know where the funding from the state is going to go into the future. Government has continued to have our funding from the federal level. So there's a lot of unknowns as far as that goes, but I think we're at least moving in the right path of getting projects fixed when we do have the availability of a little bit of additional money when our revenues exceed our expenditures by a portion. But the problem is right now, the future is just still unknown with all this. Because we're only in the early effects of this pandemic. We don't know what it's going to hold for our financial future in 2 years, 3 years, especially with the aspects of, we hope we were at a point where this was going down, but the numbers continue to spike. So we don't know the true effects or how it will be handled from a government level.
Chris, do you have a feel on, because, we're getting into our next budget season, right? So we're starting that process now and then it goes on for the next 6 months. Do you have an idea of when that uncertainty should work itself out?
Well, with the state,
Or is it going to burden us over this next budget season as well?
yeah, usually I think we'll have the availability to get our expenses together for that January due to the fact we have to essentially agree we're going to apply for any referendum exceptions and such. So I think expense-wise, we can know where we're at. The problem is we won't know actual funding wise until we start getting into, as far as the state level, we can make estimates at the local level because we should see how some of that local earned income tax is coming in. The real estate will depend a little bit. I think we will be able to go a little bit conservative based on where this all filters out to over the next couple of months. If we see job loss and such, and depending if we're going to be able to pay tax bills and such. But I think from the government level, I think we will be conservative to hopefully budget at a status quo, but I wouldn't be very confident even saying status quo this year, considering so much of that state revenue is income tax. So as far as that goes, I wouldn't expect an answer from the state on where we would go on federal money or state money until March to May.
Jude, if you've seen the state budget numbers, they don't look good, so.
I have, yeah.
And our biggest bucket from the state money is that basic education funding, which gives us over $4 million, what's the 4.5, 4.6 range for Carlynton. So, we talk about having a budget deficit of $600,000. Say we budgeted $600,000 next year, but you're so close to that line of a balanced budget, you might think $200,000 doesn't look big in a $300,000 budget percentage-wise, but when you're talking $600,000 versus an $800,000 deficit, that's where it makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of what I was getting at. And I was wondering because, everything seemed to work out, but I feel like that CARES Act really balanced us out and made things work out for us. But that's not necessarily going to be here in the future. And things could have been a lot worse than they were. And they might be worse. So.
I agree.
Thanks.
Chris, if I could add one comment on the parking lot project. I have to give the borough of Crafton and Alcoaston a ton of credit. The borough came to the district as they were looking to improve the water situation in the borough, the mixing, the commingling of the stormwater and sewage. And they identified that property as a potential place to put some remediation here. So the borough came to us, proposed it, worked with Alcoaston, worked with our local elected officials and got some grant money. And through all of that hard work, we were the beneficiaries of a project we probably would not have wanted to spend any money on right now, given the circumstances, and they were able to help us do that. So big kudos to the borough and Alcoaston and our local officials. Dr. Crowder, anything else?
That's all we have. Thank you.
Any other board questions on finance topics? Moving along then to section 3 of our meeting agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following 2 items. Number 3.1, motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Carlynton Federation of Teachers in regards to members of the Secretary Cafeteria and Aids Bargaining Unit who hold a valid Pennsylvania teacher certificate. And number 3.2, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Carlynton Federation of Teachers in regards to in-person instruction during the COVID-19 global pandemic. Do I have a motion for those 2 items?
So moved.
Who do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Under Mr. Schreiber, for this next one, I move that we take it as 4-1, 4-3, 4-4 together, and leave 4-2 separate.
Understood. Okay. So first, under section 4 personnel, we'll do 4.1, 4.3, and 4.4 as one motion. So I'll entertain a motion to approve number 4.1 to accept the letter of resignation of Christopher Jeswick, Director of Fiscal Affairs and Budget, effective January 8th, 2021. Number 4.3, to approve Pamela Dials as a long-term substitute at Carnegie Elementary School, retroactive to October 22nd, 2020, consistent with the terms of the Carlynton Federation of Teachers Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. And number 4.4, to approve the following individuals as cafeteria workers per the terms of the Secretary Cafeteria and Aids Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Lindsay Lawrence, retroactive to October 29th, 2020. Douglas Wisniewski, retroactive to November 5th, 2020. So a motion for those 3 items. So moved. Moved on a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks. Number 2.
Well, number 2, just wanted to say we do have our candidate here that is up for 4.2, our assistant principal position at the high school. Ms. Emily Sturridge is with us this evening, joined by her family. And if you want to read that motion, and then we'll take it from there.
Wonderful. So I will entertain a motion to approve and appoint Emily Sturridge to the position of assistant principal of Carlynton Junior Senior High School at a salary of $79,500 in accordance with the Act 93 agreement, effective on or about January 12th, 2021. A motion for that item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Mr. Locker wanted to say a few words regarding the process here and a little bit about Ms. Sturridge as well. But I can tell you as far as the interview process, it's relatively intense, where we take the candidates through a series of interview process. Ms. Sturridge comes to us from the Freedom Area School District, a communication arts teacher. Has a wealth of other experiences, also in technology as well. She's an emerging instructional leader, and we're very pleased to have her. We welcome her on board.
On behalf of everyone in the Carlynton School District community, we want to welcome you to our family and board, faculty, staff, administration. And we put together this greeting goal basket for you to welcome you to this family. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Ready to go?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board, Dr. Carter, Mr. Loughren, and all the community members for welcoming me. I'm very excited to get to work in January and help foster the community excellence and character of all 3 boroughs of the Carlynton School District. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Welcome. Moving on, under section 5, old business. Does any director have any old business they would like to discuss?
So I don't have old business. I wasn't fast enough on the draw on discussion around Chris's resignation. But I would like to, I'd like to call attention to Chris's dedication to the district over the last few years when we worked there. And the amount of time he put in, improving processes. I mean, really improving the way our business office works. We have I don't have numbers at the top, like at my fingers, but our administrative team works. We have a very, very lean administrative team. And a lot of that is Chris. And what he's done with his group, and especially transportation alone, you look at the improvements and kind of just efficiencies, both in cost, but also performance over the last couple of years. I think it's really commendable. So I did want to thank Chris for everything he's done for the district.
Agreed. Thank you.
So,
I agree as well. Thank you, Chris.
I'd also like to thank Chris, having been on the board for a while. I wasn't best up with the draw either. So, having been on the board for a while, I can tell you that making decisions about budgets, finances, things of that nature has not gotten any easier as time has gone on. But the situation around it, but what Chris has been able to do to modernize our information systems and whatever the board needs, or the superintendent needs, numbers, analysis, Chris really been quick to bring that stuff together so that we can have that information to make the best decisions we can. He's made us, I'll speak for myself, he's made me a more effective board member. I'm very grateful.
Just to add in my appreciation for Chris, he certainly has been a terrific asset to the school district. He was one of my first contacts in coming in to the district, and certainly was very helpful with his deep knowledge and understanding of the district in regard to not just in the area of the finance component of things, but just also the culture and the design of the district as well. And working with Chris very closely, he's a very quick go-to person to bounce ideas off of. I've always found him to be very thoughtful. He gives a lot of thought to decisions. And I think based on many of the decisions that we've had to make just over the course of the past several months, he's done an outstanding job at keeping the district financially sound. And so Chris, certainly you'll be missed, but we certainly wish you the best of luck. And thank you. We'll keep you here for a couple more weeks. Get every mile out of you that we can.
And Chris, if you could just send us a spreadsheet once in a while, so we know you're thinking of us. And thank your family too for all the hours you put in for us. We really appreciate it.
And from my end, I just want to thank the board for the opportunity. Dr. Piper helped bring me in for this interview, but the whole board as a team, we all work together to try to get the district in a better spot maybe than when I started. Dr. Imperio, I learned a ton off him. I've learned a ton off Mr. Andrews. I always enjoy when Mr. Andrews and Dr. Imperio would tell war stories, and I just pick up little bits of knowledge. I've had a blast working with Dr. Kreider. I think we have a real good team going. It kind of stinks that ended so soon, and the rest of our administrators, like Josh, Dennis, has become a little partner in crime with me when we are looking at facilities and ways to come up with things, and just all our other administrators. When Dr. Randall was here, Sarah Egg, that's a great guy. The two principals, Lauren, Marcia, Rachel Gattuso, the whole team, this is Herman. It's tough to believe when you make so many good acquaintances, and I'll say, the board is supposed to be a better business manager. Even with Director Russo, his ideas going back and forth with him, that pushed me to be better also. So
Any other old business, any director like to bring up? How about new business, any new business for any director? If not, we'll move to open forum. Mr. Jones, is there anybody raising their hand electronically or anybody in the audience who wishes to ask an open forum question? I see one question here in person. You want to rise and state your name and speak loudly?
Hi, I'm David Lennon. I live at 200 Moore Avenue. I'm going to use my phone and see. I have questions and comments, so if you need to stop or anything, please feel free. I have 3 children, 2 of which are currently in the district, one that will be attending next year. So I have a 7th grader, 2nd grader, and a future kindergartner, and we are remote still. So I just want to take this opportunity to give you my parental perspective. It is purely perspective. It is not an expectation of perfection. I do know that we are day 2 today for the 7th graders. So again, there is flexibility in my opinion. They're just opinions. I'm home with my children. I'm involved with my children. I was raised by an educator, so I have a lot of opinions. So I'll start with 7th grade. My daughter really has a 504, which for her ADHD. So I've been working with the school psychiatrist in preparation for this year pre-COVID, simply because we were moving into junior, senior high school, things were changing, and then COVID happened. It's really changed. I have to say I'm not impressed with the remote learning for the junior, senior high school. It is not to fault any teacher or principal. I spoke with the principal the other day on the phone. Great. It's a lot of work. But the kids are forgotten. They have a group chat that they have dubbed Forgotten Kids. That breaks my heart. These kids did not deserve to be punished for my decision at home to keep my kids safe. And I will not be sending my child anytime soon just because I need them to get better attention. It is your job as a district to make sure that my child at home gets at least the same level of attention. In my opinion, the virtual is not new. The in-person is new. So we should have the virtual established. There were teachers that did not sign on for her first day on Thursday. There were teachers that made, there was reasoning, there was feedback, there was definite valid reasons for them not signing on. However, that's my kid's only engagement with their teacher. So to me, the reasoning doesn't outweigh her experience. We have to do better. The thing that I was so impressed with in July was your early decision, because I work with a public, I own a small business owner. I hear all districts from all different places. You guys did the best. You do, you prepare, you hire, you help. We have to do better for the kids that are at home, because as of right now, I'm wavering towards sending her, not because I want them to score, because they don't understand. They need more engagement, they need more face time with their teachers. A suggestion too, and I spoke on the phone about it. I don't know how to do this because I'm not technical, like technology savvy in any way, shape, or form. But the only way that the 7th grade students can communicate with their teacher is to either raise a hand, which can be very hard to see when you're facilitating class, or there's a chat where they can type in the question or a question mark. Well, the chat is live for all the students that are in the class. So as you can assume, 7th grade humor can interject and they're chatting with each other, and it's the kids that are in the class. So the 5 to 6 kids that are at home, their questions are getting lost with jokes, comments, things with the kids that are in class. I think there has to be a way to either police or monitor or tell the kids that are at home not to use the chat, because it's the only option to get the question in the moment answered or brought to the teacher's attention. And I think it's the only way for these kids that come to me to feel like they're heard over the sea of the kids that are in school. Again, I know that there's a lot of flexibility and things that are going to evolve in between. By no means that I think it would be perfect. I just want want you to know from our side of things that like, not awesome and going. So the elementary side of things, my second grader, is home and, there are some questions I have, that I don't know if it will be able to be answered, that have to do with the teacher contract. So if that's another time, or please, it's fine, but, I was reading the teacher contract, they do not need to have conferences in their contract, and that they do not need to give parents access to the grade book, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. I think pre-COVID, that might have worked. Current COVID is not working. It's too much on the teacher. I would assume there is no way that teacher would be here for me as much as they do, when I could just sign on and see, they might determine their sick time, and do they have a lead? Are they telling me that they got 14 out of 15 on the spelling test, or did they actually get 14 out of 15? Today, I was asked by the teacher what my kid's spelling test score was, because the spelling city doesn't register it. Well, I'm not telling you today. So I asked my second grader, she told me it. I trust her, but I don't know if that's true or not. We've had situations where even with my older daughter, at the halfway point, she had a D. I checked them out a week ago to see what her score was, and it was thankfully a D, but I was checking to make sure that we were doing enough in that interim for the report card. It would be nice if I could just log on and make sure she's doing her assignment, especially with seventh graders. You guys do such a great job of preparing them for high school and giving them independence, so I'm not as involved, which is hard to control in me, but I want to give her that independence. But I'd also like to make sure that we're not trying to bring up a D at the end of the 9 weeks, when we could have been doing it slowly and progressively throughout the whole year. So this might be something, I don't know, contract negotiations, how that works in any shape or form, but I do think parent teacher conferences are important. And being able to have those one-on-one conversations. My mother, teacher, sometimes the only time you need a parent. So just something to consider for the future, being that we are probably going to have some remote students for the rest of the year. There are, overall for the elementary students, I would say we are only using the toolbox, or tools in the toolbox for that. We are not looking outward. There are many other things that we could be utilizing to enrich what the children are learning. The schedule as of right now, when the other kids are in school and my kids are at home, is pretty consistent. They sign on at 9:15. They get about 15 minutes of work, and then I'm left to supplement until 10:30, and they start 10:15 and sign up off. So I've made my adjustments and figured out some things online for them to do, because I don't believe 15 minutes of learning math is enough. And then doing a piece of paper. ELA then comes next, same thing. Yesterday it was 9 minutes. So at 10 o'clock, she signed on, at 10:09 it was done. They went then to go on to Wonders, they did a piece of paper, and they were done until 12:35. Now, if they were in school, they would have lunch from 10:45 to 11:45. So that's typically when my kids do lunch as well. My question is, from 11:45 to 12:45, what are the elementary students doing in school that my kids are not? Because they do not have to sign up until 12:45. If it's classroom banter, if it's what you do this week, whatever, I think it's important for the children at home to be a part of that. But I don't know what that is. I don't know what that hour is in the school day. Then they sign back on and they do one more thing for about 15 minutes. Then I have to supplement or enrich. It would be great if there was some guided enrichment from the teachers. There are certain resources out there. One I'm using right now called Food Parts. It works with distance learning. But just some things that could take the math lesson that they learned, and they did a reflex paper, and then enrich it through a game, some sort of interactive play, so that they're learning the lesson more than per class. I think you will see better test scores if you do that. And I do believe that you'll keep the kids at home engaged. Also, if the kids move to all remote for some awful reason, that we have to do that, that also translates to all the kids. I think there's a lot more out there that we're not realizing, especially in the virtual offering. I don't think we're done remote learning as an option at a time. So that being said, I just wanted to give my perspective, and offer any help or support that I can give, being that I have two children and two.
Yeah, thank you. And just for a clarification question, you had mentioned that the access to learning at the present time is a challenge. How does that compare and contrast to the way it was 6 weeks ago when we were doing it entirely remote?
I think there was more engagement because obviously the teacher wasn't doing anything else. We weren't expecting teachers to do 2 things at once. I can imagine how that works. So I think it was better, but I still think, at least from my perspective as a caregiver and the person that I hired, there were definite holes in the schedule that I think could be solved with some enrichment. But I definitely think there was more engagement simply because that's all that teacher had to do that day. They didn't have to facilitate a class and make sure that the kids at home were okay.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I asked for the clarification, is just to see if it's a transitional kind of component that we need to focus some more energy on towards students who are learning at home and students who are learning face to face. And I think, as you pointed out, it's a challenge for the teacher to balance those two and to create that environment where the children at home feel that they're a part of the learning process a significant portion of the day, which from what you shared is not necessarily taking place throughout the course of the school day. So,
Not sorry. You know what's interesting is I think the elementary students actually don't feel left out. I don't know if they know that ability yet, maturity-wise, and because it's elementary, we're holding their hands a little bit more in general. I'm in a pod, and have another family that we have some engagement happening. I see that more in the 7th graders, because we don't hold their hands, teachers aren't, it's just a different style. I think the elementary kids are not getting enough actual enrichment into what the lessons are. Because they're learning it, they're doing a piece of paper, and then they're never doing it again. And maybe pre-COVID, they would have played games. There would have been something that probably the teacher would have utilized. And I think you have to find that thing that's just not a game for them.
yeah, that's kind of what I started with at the very beginning, was that difference between that face-to-face environment and the remote environment. Nothing replaces that face-to-face environment where we have kids right in front of us. And I think it's a situational challenge that I think a lot of people are facing, both students, teachers, and multiple districts across our county, across our state, on how we get services out to our kids. But your feedback, I think, is very important, that we'll listen to and take back to our team and see if there's areas that we can put some strategies in place that will help address your concerns. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Absolutely.
Any other open forum questions, either from the audience or online students? Anyone else? If not, board members, any forums? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved, do I have a second? Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? We are adjourned, thank you.